And now, Detailing Success and PNS Double Black present the Renny Doyle Podcast, a podcast for blue-collar entrepreneurs. Hosted by the detailer of Air Force One and founder of both Detailing Success and the Detail Mafia, Renny Doyle.
First off, Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everybody's off to a good start. Is that last year was a challenging year, I think, for a lot of people. And, I'm always a guy that I love the past. I love the future. I love the now. I'm doing a better job of living in the now than I was before and just enjoying what we've got going on right now, today, this second podcast. Matter of fact, my phone's over on the other side of the shop. I want this to be 100%. And again, our goal isn't to get a sponsorship to be, we're never going to be Joe Rogan. I'm not him. Don't want to be him. His thing is he's amazing. It's don't compete with that. Don't look at that. And, I am who I am. And
I tell you what, though, his income would be nice.
Yeah, I could live with that. But is he really happy?
I don't know.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
probably really is.
I still wouldn't mind the challenge of making that work.
I wouldn't either. But, he's got his, timing's everything. We're going to even talk about that a little bit today. Timing's important, and your own timing, but timing in an industry. Like my timing in this industry was pretty much perfect. I came up at a time, and like Justin Lobato is pretty much perfect. There's some people that the timing was just right for us to get where we're at. Not saying other people won't do it. They're just going to do it a different way, with a different time and a different message.
Yep.
But, so my new trigger is glass half full. Anytime I'm thinking negative, instantly, even if I'm aggravated, we came up, we're in the Rose Parade this last, on Monday. Took us a long time to get home. The traffic was just crazy. And there's a couple times I had to say glass half full, just stay positive, And, I read a statement and I put it on social media, is that I'm in love with being happy. This is the year I'm in love. And I told a few people the last few days that, listen, man, I've got a drama meter plugged in now that goes everywhere with me. And the second I pick up people's drama, I'm out. I don't have time for it. I wish you all the best. I'm here to talk, but not drama. Not rumors, not drama, not shit. I don't want to hear it no more. I don't want to be a part of it. This world's too full of it. I don't watch TV for that exact reason. And I definitely don't want it in my real life, And so those moving ahead, those are the big things I'm working on and this year already. And let me tell you, it sounds like, glass half full. What's that mean? As I'm just going to try to always look at the positive, right? I'm going to always try to look at the positive. And I really believe in triggers, is that every time you do something, if you start practicing and you've got something in place to correct yourself, it's going to correct itself. But if you just let it boil, it's going to boil down. And you know what a sauce does to a pan when it boils down? It ruins the pan. It goes from a great tasting sauce to black gunk in the bottom of the pan that you just can never get out. And nothing that you ever cook in that pan is going to ever taste the same. I don't want that taste in my life. I just don't. And so, and then the saying, in love with being happy. Ricardo from Utah asked me a year and almost, a little over a year ago, do you love yourself? And I can honestly say that the last 2 years I've really suffered from not doing that. And I can honestly say right now, I'm trying really hard to make sure I love myself and not let anybody disturb that. Anybody, especially myself. So there's my rant. Well, you got a little bit of a break, Chris.
There you go. Bob, by the way, Bob Phillips is on. He says his glass is always half full.
Yeah, you've got to take, and he's right. He is, man. I mean, he's a very forward thinking. He tries really hard to make people around him happy and stand out. And, I'm normally that way, but I just let some stinking thinking. It's nobody else's fault. It's my own fault. But I've never allowed people in that way, and I just can't anymore. That mean I'm going to step back, or actually I'm going to be a lot more forward. It just means that I'm not, as soon as I see stuff pop up, I'm going to say something and separate. I just can't, at this stage of my life, I just can't allow that kind of nonsense. There's too many cool things happening. We came down through, I mentioned kind of, it's on the list here, is that, our unit was in the Rose Parade, and I didn't put a lot up about it. It was a real personal thing, but I told Chris this yesterday. There's hundreds of thousands of people there, but they really wanted to be there. And when you really want to be there, to see people waving at you and shouting out and just the smiles and the happiness, it's been a while since I've seen those bigger crowds that were just so happy. And it really, and here it is in Los Angeles, one of the unhappiest cities in the world, is everybody was happy. And it was such a cool thing to witness and to experience from the other side, which we probably will never experience again. And so, at one point I stopped right at the beginning and just took a 360 view, and I didn't post it on social media because that was my view. And I want to keep that view for me, if that makes sense. And it was just really cool to see people happy. And it was just proof to me that, again, glass half full, in love with being happy. I think that's a pretty cool outlook for going into the rest of life, not just a year, but the rest of your life. Set it up right.
You just mentioned something, how you took that 360 view and you didn't pull your phone out to capture it. That's more important than people think. If you try and soak in that memory just on your own without having to try and save it on some device for later, you're actually more likely to enjoy it and remember it forever.
I will. Exactly, Chris. You just nailed it. I sat there several times and just looked around and went, holy crap. I remember coming to this parade and watching it, as a teen and as a young adult, and being a happy person, looking out and waving at the people that were in the parade. And here I am, it was just an opportunity, but the biggest gift was the people. And I didn't want to take and share that with anybody. I was so happy at seeing people and being able to talk to people because, we were really lucky. We were up towards the front. And so, but, the parade stopped several times, right? They had breakdowns of the floats. Ours didn't. We didn't have any breakdowns, in front of us. But, things slow down. They have people. We had an interesting soul that was obviously pretty wigged out of his mind on something, jump into the parade route right in front of us. And, we got horses, right? And threw a blanket out in front of the horses. So we had some stops. And what I would do is I'd go up and just talk to people. And it was so magical to see people, like you'd see people way back on these stands, way back, and they're sitting there waving, and you'd point at them and wave, and they get so excited because they're way in the back, right? And it was just, I don't know, man. It wasn't what I expected. It was a gift to me, and I didn't want to share it with anybody. I was already sharing it. My wife was there. That was really, really special to share that with Diane. But we were all kind of like, we were a team, but we're independent, and we were interacting with each other, but I think we're all just soaking it in. At least I was. And, we had eyes on everything. We had to, but at the same token, I just took it as a chance to be in love with a couple 100,000 people I never met before. And they gave that love back. And it was pretty cool. I mean, there's so many amazing being in the equestrian side. They put us down in this area called the Pit, and we had the Marines there. It was pretty cool because we had practiced with the Marines, and then they actually brought their unit in. The Army brought their unit in. The Guard brought, our unit in. But being among the equestrians and all the different nationalities and genres, and it was a community. And we didn't get much sleep, and we worked real hard, and it was unreal. It was unreal. If you can tell, it was just it was a cool life experience, and I'm glad I had the opportunity.
Very cool.
So we had a couple of events leading right up to Christmas, literally just days before. So we did our first coffee coatings and profits up at PNS's headquarters. So Bob and
Yeah.
Dave were there on a Saturday and opened it up, and we had about 25 people there, right? Somewhere right in there. And we had a ball. It was
we had about 25 to 30 people show up on that day. That was what, the 17th.
Yep.
And had a good time. It was a little chilly.
Yeah, it was a little cold.
You know, if you guys can buy some more bead maker, because Bob could really stand to put some heaters in that warehouse.
Yeah, it wasn't too cold for me because I was moving around, but you guys that were, standing or sitting, it had to get frigid real quick. But it was, thank goodness we kept it. It's a short event. Anytime if you guys have a chance, we're going to bring it to the East Coast twice this year. We're going to be down in Florida this month. We're taking it down there. We're going to be down in Corona this Saturday doing one. So if you're in Southern California or close by, come on out.
Yeah, this Saturday is at Uber Detail in Corona, California. And then on the 30th, which is a couple days after Mobile Tech ends, I think it's the Monday after Mobile Tech ends in Florida, we're doing another one at Miami Lux in Miami. Well, Miami Lux is in Miami.
Yeah. So and then we haven't set the date yet. We're looking at it, but we're going to try to do one up in New Jersey sometime in spring. And so we'll look at dates there and see if we can't pull it out and see what we can do. And again, it's just I think a lot of people, there's a lot of talented people in the room, a lot of very successful entrepreneurs. And I think it was a real eye opener for all of us. I think it was really fun.
Yep.
And then we had Christmas dinner, our second annual Christmas dinner with detailers down at Uber Detailing in Corona. Mm-hmm. How many people were there? It was over 100 people.
It was busy. It was busy. It was
awesome.
It was definitely more people than I was anticipating, which was good.
Yeah, I'd say between 100 and 150 people, and that was with kids. The families came out, the spouses came out. We had, Carlos and Uni did such an amazing job. They have Santa was there. We had giveaways. We gave away a lot of stuff, a lot of cool stuff.
Let's be honest. If the planning was completely up to us, it wouldn't have been as cool.
No,
Uni's got a special touch.
She does. She really does. And Carlos has to respond to the needs and demands of Uni, which in itself is a talent. So, a lot of energy there, a lot of energy. So I think they're going to come up and ski on Thursday. So they were just here yesterday, but they want to come back out. They want to ditch the kids, but we can't tell their kids that. And so, we had a lot of downtime this last, couple weeks. Is both of us took some downtime over Christmas and New Year's, and you sold your van.
I did. I decided that that I want to take the money from the van and reinvest it into what I do for you and what I do in this industry. So I sold it, and
wow.
It went to Ryan Smith of Pro Auto Spa out in Colorado. So he flew out last week on Wednesday. He was I met him at Burbank Airport. We were there together for about 30 minutes, handed it over to him, and he took off to Colorado.
Wow. So, bittersweet moment.
Yeah, it was tough to watch it drive away. I don't let go of things easy, especially cars.
Yeah.
But I tell you, simplifying my life a little bit was part of the goal, not just getting the money out of it, and right. Freeing up space and everything else. And I don't do as much detailing anymore, but the little bit of detailing I do still do, I'm just going to focus on out of my home garage and just kind of be a private detailer for a few people.
There's nothing wrong with that. So today's topic is the best we can give, and I think this is a really cool, and a lot of people don't understand this topic is, the best we can give is that, to get something you got to give. And the Army, it's funny because it's in the early 80s when I was actually a teenager and the Army was recruiting, is they had a marketing slogan that be all you can be. And that be all you can be was an active slogan for the Army for over 21 years, I think it was. And ironically, it worked so well. They gave a the marketing agent that came up with it, the Army recently, just in the last few years, gave that person the highest Army citizen award that we can given. That's how well that Be All You Can Be helped them out in the recruiting side of it. So much so that this year they're bringing it back as their key slogan. So it hasn't been active for 20 years. It was active for 21, hasn't been active for 20. And now a whole new generation of soon-to-be soldiers are going to hear that. It's going to be some of the things that convince them to go into the recruiting office and enlist into the Army. And so what's that mean to us is that so many of us, detailing entrepreneurship, business, and period, it's got a lot in common with the Army, is that you've got to deal with what you're given. Is that the Army can't go out like a corporation and recruit. They do. There's some recruiting that goes on for specialized needs and services, but that's usually at a different level and for different things. They got to take and deal with what they've got. Well, we as entrepreneurs, not all of us have got degrees. Not all of us are financial wizards. Not all of us are marketing wizards. And much like the Army, we've got to develop ourselves. The Army develops soldiers, and we've got to develop ourselves into being all we can be. And that's huge, because to be all you can be, you've got to be the best that you can give. What can you give of yourself? And not just to customers, not just to society, but to yourself. So let's jump into this, is that, most people go around in their lives and they really, I'm going to tell you, most people hit at less than 50% of their true abilities. I think it's much less than that, especially right now, kind of in the phase we're in, and hopefully it's just a phase of where we're in society, is that, a lot of people are fearful, of entrepreneurship. They've got a crappy mindset. I know I struggled with that of taking and kind of not having the right mindset at times. They've got lazy habits. Will hold them back, is they just don't have good, solid habits. And there's a lot of people these days, I hate to say it, that the sense of entitlement, is there. And so we have that there, and it's kind of holding us back. But these things also, it's not just in business, it's the most important aspects of our life is our relationships, our career, our businesses, fitness, and team situations and opportunities that arise, is that we're not really giving it our all. We're not giving it our best in these areas, and it's a shame. And so, the best we can give, and what that means, we're in a time frame at my age, in my 50s, is I grew up at, I think, an amazing time, because my grandparents went through the Great Depression. And my grandmother saw her first airplane and her first automobile. You got to remember, at that time, when she was a little girl, all she had seen is horses and carriages. She had never seen an automobile. She saw an airplane. They were having a parade, and I believe it was a 4th of July parade in our hometown of Colton, California. And a automobile was in the parade, and a plane flew over the parade route. And at that moment, she saw history being changed. Well, I'm lucky enough to where I heard that story firsthand. That's not a secondhand story. I heard it. But, during America's greatest times, where, our young history, is that we are right smack in the middle of individual survival mode. And what I mean by that is that I asked this, the Great Depression hit. I asked my grandma this. I said, how did you fare through? And she goes, we weren't wealthy people, and we were already self-reliant. We butchered our own meat. We had chickens. We had our own milk. We really didn't feel the Great Depression that much, because we hadn't been reliant on anybody anyway. And she says, my dad, we didn't have a lot of money. We were pretty, not poor, because we were relying on but we didn't have a lot of extras and frills. But she said she remembers her dad taking and figuring out that the rich were willing to take and buy milk and eggs and meat. And so right before the Great Depression hit, is that he had bought this truck, this vehicle, and it was kind of a car truck. And it was a 4-door with a little bed on the back of it, an old Ford. And she said she had pictures, but I've never been able to find them, of the truck. When the Great Depression hit, she said, we actually did a lot better because we bartered for fine things that we needed. We had fabric for clothing, everything else, because we had the means to provide meat and survival items that a lot of people just didn't have the means of doing anymore. And so that generation that raised me they were survivalists, man. They were hardcore. They came out of, of World War I. They came out of the Great Depression. They came out of World War II.
It's pretty funny that you bring this up, because just last night I posted something that I saw, so I shared it because it was really interesting. It was all about perspective, right? And what you're talking about right now, they brought up the example of somebody born in 1900 and all the things they would have seen up until they were 75 years old or experienced, right?
Yeah.
And just what you're naming, right? You got World War I, the Spanish flu. You've got World War II event. Well, the Great Depression, then World War II. You had the Korean War in there, the Vietnam War, all that stuff. They saw so much death and so much adversity.
Right.
I mean, it's no wonder they call them the greatest generation, right? But it's just pretty interesting, the perspective, because none of us where we're at have dealt with as much adversity as they did in that span.
No, and not only that, Chris, I mean, the adversity, but look at the birth of the automobile, the birth of the airplane, the birth of communications, telephones, television. My grandmother was born in 1911. She saw all of that. She remembers her uncle going off to World War I. She also got to see the birth of the internet. I mean, she was alive for all this. But yet that woman could survive. And we'll talk a little bit about, the values that she laid down for me, is that she was tough, man, is that there was no, she was loving, man. I knew I was loved, but there was no sugarcoating anything. I've mentioned several times, and I'm very open about it. I was a special ed kid, and they were brutal on me. And she taught me, listen, you have a learning disability. We're gonna get you the help. You're not stupid. You're not, the names they called me. You need to get over this, because if you allow them to get into your head, you are going to be the nothing they're saying you're going to be. And we know better than that, don't we? And you know what? She was right. I listened to her, and I didn't listen to the other people, but she didn't coddle me. Today, in today's world, I think I would have been coddled. I would have been screwed up. Honestly, I just dealt with it. And because I dealt with it, when people made fun of me, there was no value in it because I didn't react. They couldn't get a reaction out of me.
Yeah.
I just didn't care. And if they went too far, she also taught me to be tough. They got popped in the nose. Simple as that, is that she taught me, listen, if you back down and they won't back down, that there's some point, the third time, there's 3 strikes and everything, Renny. She taught me that too, 3 strikes. Trust people twice, not a third time, 3 strikes. And she says, but if they keep going, pop them in the nose. And in today's world, it's not too acceptable, right? But I grew up tough. I grew up with some challenges. Nothing, as you said, nothing like her. She taught me hard work ethics. I didn't sleep in. Is that I would get done with a football game, and the next morning I was up at 8 o'clock doing my chore. I didn't mind. She knew I needed sleep, but it wasn't oversleep. I carried my weight from a young age. By the time that I was 10, nobody had to tell me what needed to be done. I know what needed to be done. I'd started picking up in my senses, is my common sense and my street smarts were already built. She made sure those were built. And I bled. And let me tell you, when you got hurt, and especially her being Italian, mercurochrome. Well, a lot of people, I want you to look it up, mercurochrome. It's also called methylate. Now, there's a modern day mercurochrome, but it doesn't have the mercury in it. And then also cheap cologne. She'd always go to what's called a dollar store now. It was a thrift store back then. And she'd get cheap cologne, man, because I was like a lot of us, I was adventurous, man. I was constantly cut up. I was scared. I don't think I went from the age of 3 to 30. And even now, I mean, if you look, I've got a big old thing on my finger. I'm constantly, and so she would put that mercurochrome or methylate on there. And then if we were out of that, the cheap cologne would come out. And that was just her answer to it. But even in my darkest hours as a kid, I was trained not to let struggles and opinions of others affect me. And there's only been a couple of times in my life that it's hit me, and I let people affect not only who I am, but what I am, but kind of my performance and everything about. Only 2 times. I'm 56 is a pretty good record, but will it happen again? I doubt it. I think that I'm at a really good spot to where I've kind of learned where my own threshold is, right? So the habits of giving your best, giving my best, the habits. And this is things that I've been able to witness, not just in my own life, but people around me. Now, these are not just billionaires. These are happy people, because I've been around a lot of billionaires in my career, and a lot of them are miserable. Not all of them, but a lot of them are miserable people. So I'm going to tell you this right now, is that as a kid, in my teens, my 20s, all the way up today, nobody will outwork me. Nobody's going to outwork me. When I have to put it in, and there's work to be done, and I got to get in there, and it's mandatory and survival, nobody's going to outwork me. I don't care how old I am. Nobody's going to outwork me. I will do my best to keep up with the youngest person in the crowd and shine at their level or outshine them. I'm fiercely competitive and proud in my work ethic. Relationships, you've got to give your best in everything. In your personal relationships with your wife, your kids, your spouse, your parents, friends, good friends. Is dreaming, you got to give your best. Big ideas, give your best and utilize realities. Is the big ideas, is I can sell myself on these big ideas really quickly. As I've aged and matured, and my reasoning has matured, and my knowledge has matured, I start realizing what is kind of silly and what's not. Execution. I've had a tendency of hyper concentrating on one goal and think way too simple. And so, that's been a problem, but there's also an old Russian proverb. And I just read this just in the last, during the Christmas break. If you chase 2 rabbits, you will not catch either one of them. It teaches that trying to achieve 2 things at once is very unfruitful in most times. Is that, the Russian proverb, again, if you chase 2 rabbits, you will not catch either one. Is chase a rabbit. As you get wiser and more skilled, and you get the right people around you, you're going to be able to execute more, because you'll have more people around you. But you yourself still need to be hyper concentrated on that one primary goal. Now, those goals are going to constantly change, but bringing the right people around you is hugely important. Use financially. This is a stumbling block for so many. Is you've got to give your best financially. You've got to become educated. You've got to become smart. You got to be able to become wise. Know when to spend and when not to spend. Know what is bad debt and good debt. Know the difference between. Think like wealthy people. I always say, and it's funny because of probably for the last 25 years, is I look at something and I go, is this tax deductible? In my head, I might not say it aloud, but can I find a way to legitimately write this off? And that's just the mentality of an entrepreneur. And then lastly in this is community. Giving of your time and your resources. Time is the most important element there. Is giving your best also involves taking and giving back to the community that gives to you. And a lot of people just don't get that, especially today. My grandmother is a huge supporter of our community. And what I mean by community wasn't like going to the Rotary Club. What I mean by community is the people of the community. When people were hurting, I remember, and Diane's family is the same way. When somebody gave birth, is you fed them. When somebody died, you fed their family. And we both come from that approach, is you feed people. And I think that's an old school mentality of her family from Oklahoma. And then our family, from our town, is that's what you did. You took care of the people in your community. Now, what's a community? Well, first off, it's local, it's your family. Second off, it's where you live. Third off, it's your industry, and then lastly, it's your friendships. Next onto this is roadblocks. Is that this is a big one. I'm only going to go into a couple of them because one of them is we've got subcategories underneath here. Is, man, executing when I was small. Is you need to grow into your business and your success at a natural pace. So many people don't understand this, and the real meaning of this is that there's a natural flow to growth and success. And you can see it. You can see these companies that hypergrow, not all of them, but especially people with modest backgrounds, is that they'll hit this growth mode and they'll just keep pushing that growth mode at very unnatural levels. And in my own case, I did that a couple times and it kind of backfired. I was able to, get out of it, but it would bring on a lot of debt. Growth, a lot of people don't realize this. They think, oh, a lot of money. But you know what? Growth cost too. Growth is expensive. Growth is you've got to know your numbers. And as you grow, a lot of times your margins will be affected. The amount that you're going to keep is going to be affected. Also, your tax rate if you're bringing people on, that's an astronomical cost of paying, for benefits and paying wages and taxes and all these different things that you got to pay into when you have staff. And so executing big when you're small, it could be a roadblock. Kind of go at a natural pace. I'm not saying not to be aggressive. I'm just saying you need to know when to grow and when to kind of sit at a plateau for a little while and adjust to that area. Make sure you've got the right team in place. Make sure that you've got your finances in place. Do more with less for a little while. So many people gobble up real estate, so to say, and then they get in trouble. As they look at it, the trend has been big shops, big shops, big shops. My outlook was different because of the way I came up, and because I executed too big a couple times and had setbacks. As I said, we're going to do much more with a little, and our shops were very modest. And yeah, we'd have to squeeze, and sometimes it was inconvenient. But when the economy, so you got to remember, this is probably the longest we've gone with such a robust economy in the history of our country, I believe. Maybe after the war, maybe post World War II, we probably had a pretty long boom, maybe even longer than this one. But I think definitely in my lifetime, this is the longest we've gone with just, I'd call it a boom. It's really, most people have done very well. In our town is testament to that, is we're in a resort community. You can't even move here right now. You can't get through the streets. You can't rent an Airbnb or hotel room Thursday through Sunday. You just can't get it. It's not going to happen. So it's still, while the economy is cooling, people sure don't seem to be doing it. But again, what worries me there is, are they executing big when they need to be thinking smaller? And then another roadblock is your mindset. This is a big one. And this is something that I have a lot of empathy for with people, is because this is something I've really, really struggled with, is you've got to believe in yourself. And I always knew I could do it, but I didn't always think I deserved it. So I want to say that again. I wanted it, and I knew I could go make it happen, but do I really deserve this? And that's sabotage thinking. That was horrible. And boy, I didn't have it for too long, but I want to tell you, in the early days of my life and my career, especially as an entrepreneur, is that stinking thinking got in my way a lot. And I'd say the last 20 years, I haven't had to worry about that. But you've got to believe in yourself. You've got to be able to be mentored. You've got it. I mean, a lot of people talk about it, but do you really listen? And I'm going to tell you what most people do is they go and I've mentored a lot of people, and the majority of them do this. They ask for input, you give it to them, they do the dead opposite, and then I don't mentor them anymore. Because if you're not going to respect my input and you're going to go out and damage yourself, and now you're asking for a bailout, not financially, just God, I don't have the time. I don't have time. And so if you're going to take and ask people, or if you're being naturally mentored, people are just naturally helping you, and you're kind of stepping on their toes by not taking their advice, and you get yourself in a bad spot, do not go back to them and ask them how to get out of that. Or do it, but do it once. Because remember, 3 strikes, man, on the third one, you're gone.
I just had that conversation with my wife yesterday. Most people, when they come to you for advice or they want your recommendation or whatever it is, they're really just looking for validation of a decision they've already made in their mind. They're not, absolutely. Their intention usually isn't to follow your advice.
No, yeah. And I've got really, I would say 3 or 4 major, really important mentors. I mean, I'm talking like 100,000 foot mentors, people that are just really been there, done that, very wealthy, live a life that I think is a charmed life. That's a good life. And when I reach out to them, I'll clarify. And one of them kind of chewed me one time. He goes, okay, when you come to me, I need to know one of two things. I said, okay, what? Are you validating what you're thinking? Or are you asking me for my direct input? And now what we've gotten to do with all of them is that I'll say, okay, this is what I'm thinking. This is the circumstance. This is what I'm thinking. Where am I off or am I on target? And that works really well because we get to the point. I've gotten smarter through their advice and it's really, really worked well. So right on the heels of that is be trainable, is that a lot of people don't know that is that, I always say this is to be a great leader. You got to be a great follower. And so at this age, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm 83 and like all my mentors that are gone, I mean, because I trust them so much. I mean, at that point, I mean, I mentor a lot more people than I get mentored by, and it's reversed now. But I believe your whole life through is you need, even when my mom was passing away, she was mentoring me on death. And it sounds crazy, but she was telling me the things that her regrets and her shortcomings and what she was feeling at the end of life and all these different things. And man, I took it in. And honestly, it really changed my life and my outlook. And, my goals is she said something amazing. She goes, Renny, the happiest I've ever seen you be in your entire life is when you're donating your time to good causes. And she says, you got to get back to that point to where you're giving of others and it's not about you. It's about you giving your time. And she goes, you've always been your happiest as that. And that's resonated with me since she said those words. And so you've got to be, what was my mom doing? And she was mentoring and training me at the same time. With that, you got to check your ego, man. You can't let your ego run out of control. But on the same token, you can't be weak. And that's a balancing act for a lot of people. And especially, type A entrepreneurs is that forward charging, hard charging, looking ahead, going after it hard, big time. Eesh, that's pretty tough. Right. And so, you can't lead your ego. You got to use your head and your brain but still not be weak. And then lastly is your mindset is have empathy, but be careful who you trust and who you bring into your we call it circles in our lives. And one of my mentors explained this to me years and years ago is that he's got 3 circles. He's got his inner circle is his family, his kids, and a couple of really close friends. And that's it. He said the next circle out is that he's got his closest allies and friends and some distant family. And the next circle out is the rest of the world. And I thought that was really interesting. And I've always remembered that. And I thought it was kind of strange, but as you get to different platforms in your life, you can see that's so important. Not to ever, he says, I endorse and I embrace everybody, but you control the door of who you let into those inner circles and you got to be careful with it. And I get that more now, but you've also got to have empathy for the entire world of people who are struggling. Everybody's fighting their own battles, right? I mean, life's not easy. I think it was Steve McQueen that said it, chase after life hard because life's going to constantly try to kill you, and it's kind of if you know anything about Steve McQueen, he was, adrenaline junkie and he chased it. It was just like, Ken Block just passed away, rest his soul. Is that, you talk about a guy that Chris and I were talking about offline is, he probably lived 100 people's lives in 1 year of his, with the stuff he did. And, he unfortunately, passed away chasing down, having fun and, on a snowmobile. And it's sad, but the guy influenced, everybody from, him and I are real close in age, less than a year apart, but his influence was generational. It was people. My kids know my youngest kids in their teens know who they are. people in their 60s and 70s and 80s know who he is. And so, boy, you talk about a guy that made an impact. And as Chris and I are saying, can you imagine his family, his team? I mean, everybody's just so devastated. How do you move on without a light like that in your life? I mean, that was a bright light. I mean, that was a really bright light. And, but man, we all need to shoot for that, of living just such an amazing life and being so connected and valued. And, guy's going to be missed in a big way, but it'll never be forgotten. Our sense of entitlement, I talked about this earlier, is insane right now. Is that it's not young people either, guys. It's every generation that's alive right now. Is the entitlement is spread throughout. It's not all people, but boy, I'll tell you, a lot of people just feel entitled to be successful. And I'm here to tell you is that it's not going to happen. Your entitlement, you're going to have to earn every single bit of this, and anything that's given to you is probably going to be challenged at some point. Is that you got to earn it. The best we can give changes as we grow. As we grow, as we learn, as we mature, as our life experiences kind of blossom, is that it all changes. And with that, you've got to take and give your best, but never forget to better your best. You've got to better your best constantly. You've got to educate your best. You got to mature your best. You got to appreciate your best. And then I always tell this, I've said it a million times, is revisit your best. And for me, I like to make that 10-year-old kid that I was at one point smile. I like to be back to him every once in a while. I like to visit him on a weekly basis, make sure he comes into my life and approves of the fun factor that I'm doing in life, and how I'm hanging with my friends and what our friends are doing. And so make sure, I can't remember who it was, but once the kid in you dies, you're basically dead. And I'm saying the quote completely wrong, and we'll have to look it up at some point. But make sure that kid in you stays alive, because that's the fun part of life and why we work so hard. So, Chris, that's what I got. So, I'm kind of excited for when I was looking at this, to think the Be All You Can Be from the Army is coming back. That was one of the kind of fun factors of doing this podcast today. But I think it's a great way to kick off our first podcast. We can't wait to see all of you down at Mobile Tech that will be attending. For those that haven't been or can't quite get there yet, make it a goal. It's an amazing, amazing event. And when you get into a financial spot to where it's beneficial and won't hurt you, we'd love to see you down there.
Yeah. And if you are going to Mobile Tech, we brought this up last podcast, but Education Day on Thursday, you're going to be in 3 different places that day. You're going to be in a Rupes roundtable with Jason Rose and some other guests. And then at 1:00, you're doing a presentation. And I'm trying to think of the topic. It's on the top of it's gone out of my head. But anyway, it'll be cool.
Mine too.
And then
compounding customers.
There you go. That's right. Compounding clients.
Customers.
And then 4:00, you're doing the keynote.
That was a huge one. Is be unbeatable, or unbeatable. Is that a lot of what you've heard today is the foundation of that, of being, of unbeatable, is that, you've got to feel that way. And if you're an entrepreneur, you got to be able to back it up. But when you have a mindset and you've got a plan that's unbeatable, you are unbeatable. Is that, mine has always been very realistic, and that natural pace of growing has, I won't say all the time, but probably at least 90% of the time I've hit that. But we're excited about that. We're really excited about the opportunity to come by and see us at the P&S booth. We're going to be there in a big way and showcase some of our new products that some of you haven't seen yet, and talk shop and all that good stuff. So we'd be happy to see you there. And Detailing Success and the Detail Mafia are going to have a booth for the first time ever. Did you just see the Detail Mafia booth won a contest with Mobile Tech?
We had the most registrations that used our unique registration link for the event. And
pretty cool.
Having the Detail Mafia in our pocket probably helped a little bit, but we told the Mafia to sign up using that link, which was what we were supposed to do.
Yep. So we won a little competition. So it tells you, pretty proud of that. So, hey, come by. The Mafia is going to be doing some special, the membership they're going to be doing some special things for the industry, some reach outs, some education right at the booth. And we just want to help push all of us forward, the whole industry. So we're going to be right across the aisleway from the IDA, great partners. The Mafia is very, very much supportive of the IDA. And so we're really excited about that. But with that being said, I got to go pick up a pup from the vet that's having a little procedure real quick. So
Yeah.
I will, guys, gals, happy 2023. Let's kick it off. Make it a good year. And remember, again, slogan, glass half full, love yourself. Be in love with being happy. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care, all.
Thanks for listening to the Renny Doyle Podcast, brought to you by Detailing Success and PNS Double Black. Listen to new episodes weekly, and be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And don't forget to share with your friends and colleagues.